Gents, welcome to CG Reaction. This is why your brain blinds you for 2 hours every day. Bachama Kurzgesagt in a nutshell. Now, what the hell is this about? I like science, as you already know, and I love watching Kurzgesagt video, but like there is rarely videos that really stump me. This is one of those videos, but then again, like biology is one of those areas in science where I don't know as much compared to how much I know about physics and things. So I don't know. I don't know what this is going to be about. Brain, is it has something to do with sleep? I don't know, like 2 hours blinds you for 2 hours. What could that be? Is it total accumulation of the things that your motor function takes over or something, like how you're driving and things? Is that what it is? I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. Let's watch it. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more. I like watching science videos, you already know, and I like watching Kurzgesagt, but there is not that many science channel I know of. I mean, Vsauce was great, but I don't think Vsauce posts anymore. If you know any good channel like Kurzgesagt about science, comment down, I'll react to it, and let's watch it.
The world you see is not real. You're not living in this very moment that you're experiencing, and nothing is like it seems. It turns out your brain constructs your reality as you're experiencing it. It edits your memories as they happen. It lives in totally different time spheres and tells you a story about the world that feels real. What's going on and who's really in control of your life? The gap between reality and you.
I mean, is that really fair though? I mean, let's talk about color, right? When it comes to like light spectrum, we pick up certain frequencies as color. Red, green, these are just like bands of, frequencies, basically, light frequency. But then again, how do we not know that frequency isn't supposed to look like that? Like that is how red is supposed to look red, and we call that red, but that is how it's supposed to look to an eye, right? And it's not just like some kind of like a tag on something like this frequency, this is a tag, and we call that red color. But maybe that is how it's supposed to look, because people don't recognize the same color as something else. People don't see red, and there are some people out there who see that as green. That shit, as far as we know, doesn't happen. There are colorblind people, sure, but there are people who like have mistaken color thing, I guess. Like red is green, blue is something else. So yeah, and when it comes to like like details, like in video game there is DLSS and shit like that in video games. If you're a gamer, you'd know that, like upscaling, right? Who fills in the gap? Our brain does that all the time, right? It fills in the gap a lot of time. Our eyes are not that good, right? So that's how optical illusions work. So when you see something, your brain will fill in the gap based on what it thinks it's seeing, right? So AI upscaling is already working, not AI because we are not AI, but intelligence upscaling is already working in your head, right? Just like how it's in the video game. This is why I've said it many times, like DLSS is literally realistic because that's how our brain works, right? So yeah, our brain kind of like makes up shit a lot of times, right? Fill in the gaps.
Vision is maybe our main source of information about the world, but in reality we don't really see that much. Only a thumbnail-sized area of your visual field is in high resolution, while the rest is out of focus. If it doesn't feel like this, that's because it's made up by your brain, using a pretty neat trick. Each second your eyes make 3 to 4 sudden jerky movements, saccades of 50 milliseconds, focusing from one point to another, scanning your environment to get different sharp images that your brain then edits together. During a saccade, your brain shuts down your vision so you don't see a wild motion blur. This means that each day for around 2 hours, you're completely blind. If you could actually see what your eyes see, it would look something like this. Brrr, brrr. Instead, your brain fills this time with its best guesses of what happened during the blackness. But it does way more. It turns out that you're not really experiencing time correctly. What's really happening when you're stirring milk into a cup of coffee? As the spoon hits the ceramic, light reflects off it and hits your eyes after 1.3 nanoseconds. The ceramic vibrates and creates a shockwave of air molecules that travels to your ear in 1.2 milliseconds. Heat is picked up by fibers in your fingers that send a signal to your brain in 50 milliseconds. 3 very different inputs, all processed in your brain at different times. You don't experience them separately, but as one smooth, simultaneous and connected moment.
But then again, our own reflexes and process is much slower than that. We don't experience shit in milliseconds because we can't process that fast anyway. So does that really matter? It's like, okay, we have like a 60K screen now. Great. We can't see the details, or does that even fucking matter? That type of thing, right? And yeah, what is that like, that experiment, right? Like if you see it and then your eyeball literally shifts like that, right? Because it's trying to like capture onto it. It's really peculiar how our eyes work that way. But yeah, it's our brain fills up a gap a lot of times, right? And yeah, for how to focus, not to focus is like insane. So, I think our technology of like visual technology of like TVs and things in a certain way has gotten beyond our own capabilities. And people are like, okay, I need to make sharpest and most realistic screen, right? What is it called in Apple? What is it called? Retina something, right? Retina display. It just has like, compared to how big the screen is, it has that many pixels. So you don't see a pixel. I think all that shit has like gone much more sharper in detail than even we can see now.
Your brain takes a moment to process and then invents a reality, a present moment that's not real. What you feel is now is in fact a selectively edited version of the past. You really only consciously experience the world 0.3 to 0.5 seconds after things happened. Except this is also not really true, because your brain is editing time and space way more than that, and it makes decisions completely out of your conscious control. You're living in the past. No. Future. No. A made-up future. Your present, what you experience right now, is kind of the future. Imagine for a second that you're a table tennis pro. In pro table tennis, balls whoosh around at 25 meters per second, which is pretty fast, so let's slow down time. Light passes from the ball to your eye in nanoseconds, is converted into electrical impulses that reach your brain to be processed after 100 milliseconds. Meanwhile, the ball travels 2.5 meters through the air, the length of the table. If your brain showed you the past, where the ball was 100 milliseconds ago, it would hit you before you could react. So instead, your brain takes its location, speed and direction and calculates where the ball should be in the future.
Come on, man, that has nothing to do with visual. That's a motor function where we predict things, right? If you get like, if you train your brain enough, like your brain can process based on like how you already like where the ball's going to be, and just like it's a motor function in a way, right? It's not about visually. You don't like visually see that.
By the time the information reaches you, and then it creates a fictional version of it. This is what you see in your fake present, a fake ball that's somewhere else. But you don't need to just see the ball, you want to smash it back hard. If you acted now and started swinging your arm, you'd miss by a mile. Things are just too fast. So before the ball even touches your opponent's bat, your brain starts predicting where it will likely be in space after they hit, based on the other player's posture and your table tennis experience. But as it can't be sure if it will be correct, it prepares multiple different responses. Maybe the ball will be here, or even here.
Come on, man, that can't be true. We don't see it, right? We assume it, like how to like do this or what result is going to come up with, but we don't really experience it or see it. We see what is happening, right? Like we get better at like, predicting in advance, right? Doesn't matter what you do, anything fast, like if you're a bike racer or something, like this is one of those things that you predict and it becomes your motor function. You don't actually see it or experience it.
To be ready for all of these scenarios, your brain sends pre-programmed orders to the muscles you need to jump left, right or up, telling them to be ready for any of them at a moment's notice. For a short moment, multiple ghost versions of you exist, all equally real inside your brain. And then as your opponent is about to lay into the swing, your brain decides on a single future that it thinks is most likely. All but one of the ghosts are deleted. You only ever experience the ghosts that won, never the potential ones. The order to the muscles to act out the winning movement is triggered even before the ball is hit back to you. You are totally oblivious to this. By the time you consciously see the ball coming at you and decide to hit it in a particular way, your body has already hit it back. In reality, your brain already made all the decisions. Your conscious experience is nothing more than an invented future, a prediction based on the information your brain received a fraction of a second ago. This is not just true for extreme sports like table tennis, but also for walking. Walking is time travel. After your game, you're walking back home, seemingly choosing your path and reacting to things. Meanwhile, your brain is operating in 3 different time spheres at once. It processes the sensory feedback of the past, it calculates the current state of your body, and it predicts your future. Because walking is intense. Before the signal from your foot touching the ground has even reached the brain, it's already sent the order to your foot to make the next step, and it's already calculated the muscle patterns for the next 2. But what if something truly catastrophic happens? There's a banana peel, and you step on it and slip. How did it get here? Listen, don't worry about it. It turns out your brain is ready for this. So far, we spoke of your brain making decisions for you, but this is not really true. You don't have a central control room where the world comes together. In reality, different parts of your body are aware of different things at different times. Your spinal cord usually knows stuff before your brain. And even within your brain, different regions process the same event at different speeds and make independent decisions. As your foot catches the peel, the gyroscope inside your ears notices a sudden change of your position in space. It submits this information to your brainstem and spinal cord, the "things must happen quickly" section of your body. They immediately trigger emergency recovery patterns and send orders to different muscle groups. Within 200 milliseconds,
Yeah, I mean, the part of your brain that calculate complex things, like processes in that particular world, like how we think of processing, like in computer world, in the AI world, how we, think of what processing is. When our part of the brain that process thing is completely different than certain motor function part of your brain that works instantaneously. So they're going to work independently, right? So one part of you determines in the future, okay, where a foot is supposed to be, and calculates in advance and guides your motor function that way. There's also part of your brain that acts instantly with any sensor input, heat input or a gyroscope input, anything like that. I mean, it just makes sense. It's because that is putting it in I don't know, more fun way, right? We live in the future, we live in the past, but it's just calculation in the end.
pre-programmed sequences activate to catch your fall. Your arms shoot out, your other leg stiffens to support your weight, your core muscles contract to stabilize you. 100 milliseconds later, when you become aware that you're tripping, your body is already
Only if you're athletic, like you've done some athletic thing in the past. Otherwise, your body's motor function don't know that, and you'll fall down face first.
recovering. You are only just now catching up. Okay, so we've learned that your brain is constantly predicting reality around you, makes decisions about the best way to act, and then shows you an edited version, which totally makes sense. Would you really want to be in charge of all that? But your brain is not just predicting the external world. Right now, it's predicting a way more complex thing, you. Are you just a prediction of your brain? Why do you feel about the world the way you do? Your sense of hunger, your energy level, and especially your emotions are not just objective reactions to what state you're in, but predictions. Your brain's prediction of what you'll need soon or need to be ready for. You're probably used to getting food or going to bed roughly around the same time. And as the time approaches,
Is consciousness just complexity, combination of complexity come alive or something? Right? Like, is consciousness really a thing, or like enough of brain function put together, emotions and everything, and how brain works? Does that create consciousness? I guess we'll know if AI becomes real and conscious. If AI starts to think for itself, we'll know we made it complex enough that it can do that. Who knows? Maybe it's just enough of the processes that rely on each other, and it just becomes this an engine, right? That just feed each other, and it's a live thing. That's how alive happens. Who the fuck knows?
your brain releases hormones to prepare you. A self-fulfilling prophecy. You get hungry or tired because your brain assumes this is the time when this is needed. This is the most striking thing about your emotions. They aren't just reactions to the outside world, they're predictions. When you go to a party, your brain isn't waiting to see how you feel once you get there based on how the party actually is. It analyzes your experiences of past parties and who it expects.
Not to mention the person, the evolutionary person. They just say okay, it's better to run away. It's survival is the best thing, and only way to survive is not experience it at all. Not to mention that evolutionary shit is also there. Yeah, it's probably people are gonna make fun of you. Just run away. People are gonna make fun of your shoes. There you go. Will they do that? Is there any experience of the past? No, no, no. It just makes sense. Why? Because it's survival. Why risk it?
To be there, maybe close friends you feel safe around, maybe people you don't know who are a less socially secure bet. Maybe your brain remembers a party where you felt anxious and that experience stuck. This can be
Maybe going home and playing Doom is better than to interact with people, or just play with your phone. There you go. That's what everybody does nowadays. Go anywhere and people are always on the phone. Like, okay.
pretty annoying. If your brain predicts anxiousness, it adjusts your heart rate, hormone levels and muscle tensions before you even enter the room. It prepares your body for anxiety, making you actually feel anxious, which then confirms the brain's prediction and gets saved for future reference. Does this make you feel like you're
Yeah, there is a certain, I'm pausing too much, but there's a certain element of people who assumes worst, right? And they rationalize themselves thinking, at best, we were wrong and everything is fine. But at least at worst, I'm prepared for it, so I'm not going to get hurt. Yeah, the flip side of that is 10 out of 9 times, right? No, 9 out of 10 times, nothing's going to happen. Probably only one time, even that is probably something bad's going to happen. But you're going to live all the 10 times worrying about and expecting worse. Is that a way to live? Right? That way too many people I've found out who's just basically like, okay, I always expect the worst. Always prepare myself. So I'm never surprised or never caught off guard. Yeah, but the way you're living is depressing. Right? If you're not depressed yet, you're going to become one if you have that mentality. That's never good, right? I'm always prepared. You're not preparing, you're expecting worse every single time. That's no way to live, man.
just along for the ride, forced to experience whatever predictions your brain feeds you? Thankfully, it's not quite like that. Your conscious self is obviously not the decider of most things as you go through your day. But that is not what it's good at anyway. Your brain and all of these different organ systems decide a lot of things, but they're more like butlers taking care of all the busy work. You may not be in the driver's seat, but you are the passenger that decides where to go. What your conscious self is good at is long-term planning and abstract thinking. It's a storyteller that tells the story of your life to your brain and to yourself, wherever the edges of these overlapping entities melt into each other. You are able to see the big picture that your internal prediction machine could never begin to grasp. You are the part of you that can edit and write new predictions into the system. Sometimes you and your brain disagree on what's correct, but in the end, you are the person in power who tells the story about who you are in this world. A story so convincing that you experience it as undeniable reality. And as a happy accident, your conscious self is great at being happy about ice cream, fascinated by internet videos, and thinking deeply about Pokemon types. What if you could train your brain to be more than
Hey, well, go to brain.org forces nutshell and support this channel. Yeah, when it comes to our brain's conscious self, when it comes to problem solving element of that, it's usually like how you solve a math formula, right? It's very like in portions. You're supposed to like understand something and then move on and then let your motor functions that you don't control handle everything, right? Example of that is like if you hear about some sort of fucked up thing that happened, if you think about that, you'll empathize with the situation, you think about it, it will really hurt, right? If you really feel it. If you do that again, it will hurt less. If you do that again, you'll just go numb. What, that the situation become less fucked up during that time? No, it's because you understood it. Your brain is like, okay, problem solved. We understood it because we felt that kind of like fucked up because we understood the situation. There's no new revelations going to come from this. Move on. And then let your motor function handle it. That's why this is the problem in modern world. You get fucked up news all the time. Then you get numb by it because your brain is not supposed to work that way. Your brain is not supposed to constantly have to feed this problem element 24/7. Your conscious self. Your motor functions take over everything else, right? So this is the problem. Like it's just like bit by bit, a mathematical problem type of way. Like you can't just have that 24/7, right? If you like in future, just do this experiment, right? Figure something that makes you think about that and try to think about that longer time. See what happens. Your brain is not supposed to work that way. You'll go numb Or at best, your brain will actively try to avoid that topic in the future. Right? You won't even notice. You're like, what the fuck? Why am I running off from that? Like subconsciously is because like you thought about that long enough time and your brain tagged that as like problematic stay away. Brain is really peculiar, man. Like it will take a long time before we understand completely, right? It's just awesome. Right, well, that was why your brain blinds you for 2 hours every day. But in a nutshell, yeah, it's the in betweens, right? If you like my reason, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.